Welcome to another episode of Mixed Reactions. I'm Casey Merritt, your host for the night, along with my co-host Justin Duncan. Ian Blackwell will be joining us shortly. How's it going tonight, Justin?
Not bad. This is episode 80.
Man,
80.
we're consistent, and we're
Yeah.
consistently we're consistently not getting views, but here we are.
Folks who may be watching, who might eventually watch, we're talking about making some shorts. So in between shows, we'll try to put a little bit more extra content there, try to pull some more things out of the algorithm. So we'll see how things go.
Absolutely. And that's for the people who can't stick around for a full show, but kind of want to hear our opinions on just certain topics that they have a direct interest in, which makes sense. And so that's the type of content we're also going to try to provide for y'all.
And if y'all have questions, put them in the comment section. We'll answer them.
We will answer them. And we are also, we've done this before and we will do it again. We will have guests on this show. If you ever want to be a part of Mixed Reactions, either hit myself, Ian, Justin, or Sean up. Let us know you want to be on the show, and we will figure out a time frame for you to be on it, and we will discuss any sports topic that you would like.
I got to hit my brother up. I think he'd want to. He's on the West Coast, so he'll fit right in with Ian.
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to have him on. And you got to think about it, Justin. That's how you ended up becoming a permanent member of this show, just being a guest on a couple times. And,
Sure.
we had good chemistry, and we asked you to be a full-time host, and you obliged.
What was that, like the resident baseball guru at the time?
Anytime we had baseball, I was like, we got to get Justin on if we're going to talk baseball.
Yep.
Now, we're in the mix of the play-in tournament. Obviously, that starts tonight. Currently, the Orlando Magic have a 36-23 lead over the Atlanta Hawks. Now, Justin, you and I are both Celtics fans, so let's kind of kick it off like this. As a Celtics fan, would you rather face the Hawks or the Magic?
In terms of, I guess that's a twofold question. So, are you asking me, do I want to see an entertaining series against the Celtics, or do I want to see a comfortable series for the Celtics?
So, I want you to interpret it just as a personal feeling, like
okay. Personal feeling. What do I want? I'd rather have the Magic because I feel that they would be a better defensive test for our offense.
Yep.
And this is going to sound horrible, and I don't mean it to sound horrible, but I mean it to sound horrible. I can't stand Trae Young. I just can't stand him. And Atlanta just, I don't know, it just rubs me the wrong way. They just do.
They're like that annoying little chihuahua that keeps nipping at your ankles.
Yeah, they're just like and not to mention Trae Young looks like a bit of a rat anyway, so there's that too. Yeah. I'd rather face what I feel is a better team in Orlando than Atlanta. And Atlanta, again, I don't think either team would pose any significant challenge to the Celtics at all. But I think from a defensive capability standpoint, Orlando is one of the better teams defensively in the entire league. They don't have the offense to hang with the big boys, but they can defend.
They can. They absolutely can. And I kind of have a hot take for this series, either if it's Orlando or Atlanta. And I think they should sit Jaylen Brown for the series to let him rest up and get healthy. He's clearly not 100% and hasn't been for at least 2 or 3 weeks now. And it was very evident the way that he played very minimal minutes over the course of the last 5 games. I don't think there's any reason to put him into that situation. They can clearly beat Orlando or Atlanta without Jaylen Brown. And I think this is going to sound crazy, you may even rest him for the Knicks series.
I don't know you'd rest him that long. I think if he's gonna come back in this series, I tend to agree, but I would say with a little bit of a caveat. Unless there's a game 6 involved, you don't bring Jaylen Brown into the series for the Orlando or Atlanta series. You let him sit unless it goes to a game 6.
That's fair, because you don't want to have because we know anything can happen in the game 7, right? So you wouldn't want to wait until game 7 for that to happen.
Exactly.
So, especially if it's Orlando or Atlanta, because if they push Boston to a game 7, they're going to have that full confidence swing anyway. So you're going to see their best effort on that game 7. So I fully agree. If it somehow went to a game 6, you'd have to put Jaylen Brown back in that starting lineup too, just in case. Even if they did lose that game, he'd have a game under his belt for that game 7. So,
and you don't necessarily getting full regular game minutes in a game if he was to do a game 6. You just need to put him in there, if anything, to have. This is a motivational factor, but I want to say, but you don't want to. You want to have given the appearance of having their hand over a panic button without actually putting their hand over a panic button.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. And realistically, I think the only team that can really challenge the Celtics in the East is the Cavs, which is why I suggested, resting him even for that Knicks series. Look back at the last Knicks game; he didn't play a minute in the fourth quarter. Not that it has anything to do with like a full playoff series, but it does show that they can stay competitive with the Knicks even without a Jaylen Brown.
Right, but I don't even think the Knicks are going to make it to that series. I think it's going to be the Pistons. I think Detroit's going to upset New York because I think New York is ready for a letdown and ready for a blow up because they need to blow that up, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, when you really think the Knicks, they're 0-9 against the top two teams in each conference. They don't have a significant win all season long. I could see them losing to the Pistons in the first round. I mean, Detroit has that heart, and Cade Cunningham is a dog.
He is a dog. D-O-double-G dog.
Yeah, they're going to be a problem in the East for years to come now. They're only going to continuously get better. And so you got to be really impressed with what the Pistons have done.
Because we left the Pistons for dead. We all did.
For years. They have.
Well, this year, there's two teams this year that I needed to eat crow on right now. Golden State, who I left for dead, because they were floundering. I thought once Klay Thompson was gone, that was going to take away from much everything. I didn't trust the Jimmy Butler trade was going to make that much of an impact. It did. And then the Pistons, they were the Pistons, so I didn't really give them much of a thought.
Right. To give credit and credence to your Golden State pick, though, they've had a tough last 5 games. That blown loss against the Spurs kicked them out of the 5 seed, and now they are fighting for their lives in the play. Excuse me. Wow. In the play-in against Memphis tonight. Now, granted, they should win that game, but that means they're going to be facing a Houston team or an OKC team. I would give them a good shot against Houston. I think Houston is one of the top teams that can fall in there, but I would give them no shot against OKC in a 7-game series.
Yeah, you don't want to. You're going to want to. They're going to want to beat Memphis now and hope, and then let Memphis or who's on the other side of the plan for that Western Conference.
I think it's Dallas.
Okay, Dallas and who else? Because there's the 10-9, and there's the 7-8 game.
Sacramento.
I thought Sacramento was the 5 seed. No, you're right because it's OKC, Houston, Lakers, Denver, Clippers.
Yes.
Who's the 6?
The 6th seed is.
I thought that was Sacramento.
I'm pretty sure Sacramento's the 9th seed. The 6th seed.
I'm checking.
Oh my God, I can't think of the 6th seed right now.
I'm checking right now because I swear it was. I knew who it was. I swore it was Sacramento.
Because you're right, it's OKC, Houston, Lakers, Denver, Clippers, and then the 6th seed plays the 5th seed.
Minnesota. God Almighty.
Jesus Christ! Yes, Minnesota. Yeah, so I can easily see the Lakers. Oh, not the Lakers. Jesus Christ, the Warriors getting bounced out by the Thunder in 6 games. It is crucial the Warriors win tonight against Memphis because I think they beat Houston. I just don't think they beat OKC. Now, for a matchup in the West, that you wouldn't call this a upset because of the rankings of the teams, but I would call it an upset due to how we projected these teams. Does that make sense? And that upset is I think the Clippers are going to take out the Nuggets. Coaching in his 4th game ever against a championship coach in Tyronn Lue. Kawhi Leonard's looking the best he's looked since 2019. James Harden's back to averaging almost 30 a game. And outside of Jokic, unless Jamal Murray turns back into playoff Jamal Murray,
which I haven't seen happen all year. Have you?
Really? Exactly. It has not. I have the Clippers bouncing them.
Which is weird because going into this year, we thought it was going to be Denver's year again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, it was going to be Denver and OKC. Has Ime Udoka got the comeback, the coach of the year wrapped up? Because
no, I think it should go to oh my God, his name is escaping me. The coach
Bickerstaff?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So here's the thing, right? Back to Denver real quick, obviously.
Yeah, sure.
Denver and Jokic, is this becoming a LeBron's first stint in Cleveland type situation?
I just thought about that. I was thinking, does Jokic need a change of scenery? But where the heck he would go, I have no idea.
Jokic is one of those low-key individuals, of course, where he doesn't need to be in New York. He doesn't need to be in Boston. He doesn't need
a flashy place to go. He really doesn't.
He absolutely doesn't.
Where would you put him? Where would he go? If they opened a Seattle franchise, I wouldn't put it past them to run it to open the new franchise there.
No, that would absolutely be a good scenario for him. It's just the way I'm seeing it turning into a LeBron first in Cleveland thing is because they're so heavily reliant on Jokic, and he's good enough, obviously, great enough actually, where he can drag them in deep playoff runs. But look at the key pieces
that was my argument about LeBron being a scorer first on the last show, because his first stint in Cleveland, it was all about him. No one else. It was all LeBron. Score. Everyone relied on LeBron for scoring. That was my argument about that.
Which makes total sense, and I fully understand that argument. Absolutely. And with Jokic, look at what Denver's doing. Look at how many key pieces they've let go of. Bruce Brown, Tavius Caldwell-Pope. There's so many pieces from that championship core that are no longer in Denver.
Right.
And I wouldn't pick Denver to come out of the West this year over the Lakers. I wouldn't pick them to come out over the Thunder. I wouldn't pick them out to come up over the Clippers.
I wouldn't pick them over the Rockets. And I don't trust the Rockets.
No, I don't trust the Rockets either. The only reason I may pick them over the Rockets to come out, if I had to choose between if I had to rank the teams, is because the Rockets are just so young.
Houston's playing with house money right now. They have nothing to lose.
Agreed. 100% agreed. They have absolutely nothing to lose. But they're so young and so playoff inexperienced. And I think Ime Udoka has done phenomenal in Houston. He is a great coach. He turned Boston. I don't want to say he turned Boston around, but he took them to that next level that Brad Stevens couldn't do. And then he's doing the same thing in Houston right now. And so they don't have a killer on the team. They don't have that elite scorer who can go. You got to think, if you look at Houston, yes, they're high flying, they're heavy 3-point shooting, but they have a lot of scoring droughts that in this playoff is going to eventually wind up hurting them.
It's going to come back and bite them, especially if they have to go against Golden State. If Golden State gets their act together.
Yeah, of course. No, absolutely agreed. And if Jimmy Butler turns back into playoff Jimmy for Golden State, they have the possibility of making that deep run too.
Yeah, playoff Jimmy's going to have to be playoff Jimmy because because for Golden State, you're going to need Steph to be Steph. You're going to need Draymond to be Draymond, and you need playoff Jimmy to make a deep run in this playoffs, because without that, they're not going to get past OKC, even though I don't really trust OKC for the long term. I really don't.
No.
I wouldn't take Golden State over the Lakers based on how the Lakers have been playing in general.
No way.
Yeah. Right now, I think the West comes down to OKC and the Lakers, and right now it could go either way, but I'd lean towards the Lakers myself.
It's tough. I mean, the one thing that I agree with you, and the one thing that would make me lean towards the Lakers is that playoff experience.
Exactly. because Luka's fresh off his finals run. LeBron is LeBron.
Yeah.
And JJ Redick knows how to coach in the clutch. He's done it. He's been doing it.
100%. 100% agree. And especially in these type of situations where, like you said, Luka, fresh off that finals run, where aside from the Boston series, was the best player in the playoffs throughout the entire series, was the best player in the playoffs. Aside from
You could have made the argument that he could have been the finals MVP in a losing effort. You could have made the argument.
You could have. He struggled.
Not that in the Boston series, Jaylen Brown was by and large the best player in the series, and there's no doubt. But if you did they have a NBA playoffs MVP, or was it just the finals MVP?
So there's like a Western Conference MVP, like you know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, he won that.
Okay, because that was a absolute give it to him.
Yes, no question. He earned every bit of it. The only time that Luka truly struggled, even against Boston, is when you had to go one-on-one against Jaylen Brown. I'm not sure I'm not basketball sophisticated enough to understand what Jaylen Brown does to frustrate Luka so much. I just know that he stays in front of him and his hands are quick. So anytime Luka tries to switch hands an opposite hand dribble, he's able to poke it away.
Yeah, I think from what I saw, and I'd have to rewatch the finals, and I think what threw Luka off was Jaylen Brown's footwork.
That absolutely could be it. No question about it.
Because he couldn't get Jaylen to slip.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're not having Ian Blackwell tonight, so it's just the two of us, but that's okay.
Hey, ain't nothing wrong with that, my brother. Ian, we hope you're well, man. We'll see you soon, of course.
Anyway, so we're getting towards the Eastern Conference, because let's kind of look there, because you kind of harped on the West a little bit. So right now we have the play-in we have, obviously we talked about the Hawks and the Magic. Who have you got in the second play-in?
It's Chicago and Miami, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I believe you are correct.
So for that one, I'd go with Miami just because it's Miami. Like, you know what? Like, it's Coach Spo. They still got Bam Adebayo. They still got Tyler. Like, you know, Miami's nothing I would stress about in a playoff series this year, especially with no Jimmy Butler. But I do anticipate they would take out a team like Chicago. Or if they had to, I believe they could take out, you know, Atlanta or Orlando if they ended up facing one of them somehow. But nothing about Miami is scary. I would anticipate they would lose in 5 to Cleveland.
Yeah, I don't imagine seeing Cleveland or Boston in the first round getting anything worse than a gentleman's sweep, honestly.
100%, yeah. I mean, unless Cleveland just collapses because they just don't have that championship DNA, which I don't foresee happening.
I don't see that. I just not to think. I mean, Cleveland is kind of one of those sneaky, really good teams that they're not really talked about as much because they're not one of the marquee franchises. I mean, they are, but they're not at the same time. But I just don't see. None of the bottom feeder Eastern Conference teams really have a shot. I mean,
no.
This is not to take anything away from any of these players that are on these teams. They are NBA players, and they would smoke the living hell out of us.
No question.
But the level of talent is drastic comparing the two. The difference in talent.
You could argue a team like Boston or Cleveland could theoretically rest 2 starters and still comfortably beat any of those bottom feeder Eastern Conference teams to the playoffs.
Yeah, you could make the argument. I think you could. I think the one other team in the Eastern Conference I wouldn't sleep on is probably the 2 Eastern Conference teams I wouldn't sleep on are probably Indiana and Milwaukee, just because of their playoff pedigree and playoff experience. Milwaukee more than Indiana, but
definitely Milwaukee. Even without Dame, like Indiana to an extent, I see where you're coming from to have like a little bit of concern. Not nearly as much as Milwaukee, and Milwaukee is simply just because of Giannis, and it's simply because you never want to go into a game 7 where the other team could potentially have the best player on the floor.
Right. And Dame isn't done. Apparently, his blood clot in his leg has improved enough that he may return for the playoffs.
That would be huge for them.
That would be huge for them. I don't think but I just, you can't rely on that to happen.
No, absolutely not.
You have to go into it with the mindset that you're not going to have him and play and look how, like, expect to not have him and be surprised if you do, sort of thing.
No, that makes complete sense. Yes, and Dame is one of those players that obviously, if he's hot and he's having a good night, he can absolutely light you up.
He could torch you without much effort if he's hot.
Yes, no question. And he's been alone for most of his career. Obviously, he had a few good years when he had C.J. McCollum on his backside. Mm-hmm. So they've made a couple, deep Western Conference playoff runs when he was in Portland. But Dame is not a player I would fear like a Steph Curry, like a LeBron, like a Luka. He's not in that lane.
And that's weird because when he was in Portland, he was talked about like he was in that lane.
Yes, he was. He absolutely was. Deservedly so.
Deservedly so, no doubt. But I'm curious what your thought is as to why now he's not, and barring injury. I mean, injuries notwithstanding, why do you think that now that he's in the Eastern Conference, he doesn't have that ambiance or that aura?
So no, that's a great question, and the best way that I can describe it is once you've seen a player at their best still not be able to get the job done, even with the talent around him was sort of lacking, which I fully agree on. But once they kind of like a Chris Paul situation where they've come up short so many times, you just don't fear them in the big moments anymore. Yes, you can fear them for a game. Yes, you can fear them for a half or something of that nature. But for a full 7-game series against a team that has much better talent on it than the opposing team, then someone like a Dame just doesn't cut it as far as a top echelon feared player. Talent-wise, he's phenomenal, one of the greatest shooters of all time, a top 75 player in the history of the league, one of the best players of our generation. But there's been so many top echelon players of our generation that he just falls slightly short of that upper echelon elite level to me personally.
That's a fair point. And I think Milwaukee, for me, Milwaukee kind of pumped the season for me in terms of a deep run when they traded with Chris Middleton. That for me was their X factor in the playoffs, which now they don't have.
Yeah, you got to think of how big he was in that 2021 run. People don't realize how much of a contributing factor Chris Middleton was. I believe he was averaging almost 4 a game during that.
And then when in the year where the Celtics made their run, obviously ended up losing to the Warriors in the finals, Middleton not being in that series was the reason why the Celtics got past the Bucks. That was why.
Yeah.
It wasn't because of Robert Williams III, Time Lord, or anything. It wasn't Tatum. It wasn't Giannis choking. It wasn't Jaylen Brown. It was because Middleton wasn't playing.
And if we go back to that series, I mean, obviously Tatum's Game 6 performance, dropping 46 points, was phenomenal.
Legendary performance.
And then Grant Williams, when he hit 7 threes in Game 7.
It's like 6 or 7 threes. He just like it's like let it rain, but actually sinking them.
Yeah, it was one of those. That Golden State series is one of the most disappointing series for me as a Celtics fan.
It was like everything was like, but we spent everything getting to them, and then didn't have anything left in the tank.
No, we didn't. And when we went up 2-1 in that series, like I was like, oh my God, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it.
But then Game 4, that was like, oh yeah, that was the peak. That was it. Yep. There we go. Yeah,
once Steph Curry kind of awoken and was like, I'm fucking Steph Curry over here, guys. Do you not know who I am?
It wasn't not for me. It was when Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins started going off. It's like, crap. Yep. There's option 2. There's option 3. Option 4. Yep. There. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's it.
Back then, too, like it's crazy that they made the finals like this. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown hadn't fully learned how to play together yet. It was almost like the first year with LeBron and D Wade with the Heat, Like, okay, my turn, your turn, my turn, my turn, your turn. You know, it was.
And it was after that series that the talk really amped up. Do you break up the group? Do you break them up? Because that run, it wasn't that they were clashing, but they weren't gelling together.
Exactly.
So, and it wasn't even like a clash of personalities, and it wasn't even a clash like my ball, your ball, my ball, your ball. It was, do we work together well enough to make this kind of run that we're making now anything remotely consistent?
Yeah.
Which obviously they did. They did. They figured out how to play together well enough, and they made their run they made last year. Granted, I think the fact that you added Porzingis and Holiday and with Derek White and Holiday being the best defensive backcourt in the front court of the game, fight me on that. But
you're right. You're 100% right on that.
I mean, for God's sake, Derek White is blocking 7-footers at his 6'3" frame.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's adding Porzingis, it's adding Jrue Holiday, and also it's the emergence of Derek White. How much better?
Right, and and let's not forget the fact that Peyton Pritchard give you a buzzer beater at half almost every game if you need.
He's unquestionably the sixth man of the year. No question about it.
I don't think it's even close. I don't think it's even close.
And Justin, it pains me to say it, and because I love Marcus Smart. I love Marcus Smart, dude.
Oh, that trade hurt. That trade hurt.
When Marcus Smart is the epitome of what it means to be a Boston Celtic, and I would welcome him back with open arms. But he needed to go. For that time being, he had to go.
And it wasn't that he wasn't he was a liability for that Warriors finals run, because he wasn't.
No, but we had to get Jrue Holiday.
You had to take that swing, and that was the only way to make that swing.
Absolutely. And like I said,
well, Smart was in the Porzingis trade. He wasn't in the Holiday trade.
No, but we needed to get rid of Smart we needed to get rid of Smart to get Holiday, because we wouldn't be able to have Marcus Smart, Pritchard, Holiday, and White. That's not a backcourt, a front court that's going to work.
No, that's true. That's fair. I'm just saying, in terms of who was involved in the trade, he was in the Porzingis trade. He wasn't in the Holiday trade.
No, I know. Yeah, I'm not talking about the trade. I'm talking about the door opening to get.
In terms of where you fit him on the bench in the rotation. Sure, absolutely agreed.
It had to happen, and I would welcome Marcus Smart back, because I think it could work now.
I think it could work now. I mean, and this is not throwing any shade at Jrue Holiday, but Jrue Holiday has had some injury issues this year.
He's getting old.
And it's not to take anything away from the man, because the man delivers when you need him to deliver.
Yes, 100%.
I would take him back too, but this is going to sound weird. I would take him back if Holiday was okay with hanging him up. I wouldn't take him back unless Holiday was going out on his own terms, as opposed to you're shipping him out.
No, I agree fully, and it would have to be hanging them up too. Like
exactly, it has to be a hang them up situation. It's not like we're done with you. We've had enough of you or anything like that. That's Holiday is like, I'm getting up there. I've got my 2-3 rings. He's won 2 rings, one with the Bucks and one with the Celtics.
No, one. Yeah. It could be a situation where we relegate Holiday to the bench either.
No, it's got to be a hang him up kind of thing for me.
Yeah, because there's certain players in the league where I'm trying to word this correctly here. There are certain players in the league that are meant to be starters for certain reasons. Players,
right?
He needs to be a starter in your front court. He's one of the best presence in the league. I was telling Ian this I don't know if you were on the show at this time. Jrue Holiday is what Patrick Beverley pretends to be.
Yes, I was there for that one. Yep. And I think I agree with you on that one. because at the same time, like for example, with this year, you can't put Pritchard in the lineup to put Holiday on the bench. It doesn't work.
No.
You can't do that because Pritchard is filling the role of what Derek White is doing right now.
Yes. Pritchard is almost like the exact opposite of a Holiday, where Pritchard is meant for that six man on the bench. He is meant for that role.
Absolutely agree.
He's like a Manu Ginobili, not nearly as good as. It's not saying that, but he's like a Manu. He's like a Lou Williams. He is meant six man on the bench. It's what his position should be.
That's his lane, and there's nothing wrong with that being his lane. Nothing wrong with it. No, I mean if you are a perennial sixth man of the year, hey, that's nothing to sneeze at.
Especially on a championship contender.
Exactly. Speaking of, you mentioned Manu Ginobili, which brought my mind to the Spurs. Shout out to Chris Paul. You mentioned Chris Paul earlier. At his age, he played all 82 games this year.
That's a phenomenal feat. Absolutely phenomenal feat. I used to have major beef with Chris Paul because of the feud that he had with Rajon Rondo, and Rondo's one of my players. But
Rondo's like, yeah, he's my guy, but
yeah. But Chris Paul is one of these players. Again, one of the greatest point guards we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's ever going to be in a scenario where he's going to get a ring ever.
He would have had the NBA approve the trade to the Lakers when he was on the Hornets.
Oh, he would have gotten one. Yes, absolutely would have gotten one.
And then, what was in that trade anyway? Because I know the Hornets were like shelling everything out.
Yeah, no, they were. You know what's weird about a situation like that is when fans who don't really know what's going on are like, oh, how did the NBA deny that but allowed LeBron to go to Miami or KD to go to KD to go to Golden State? It's like because they went in free agency. Like that's their decision.
This wasn't a trade.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of KD, really quickly here, he's obviously leaving, right?
Yeah.
I want him to go back to OKC.
Could he gel with SGA?
Oh, yeah. KD is one of the players I think you could put in any lineup, and he's going to do what he does. He's going to get his 27 and 8. Like, I would love to see KD with OKC. I don't think he's going there. I personally think he's going to Miami, and I think that's why they got rid of Butler. But
okay.
I would love to see him reunite with OKC.
I'd love to see him in Boston if for example, Porzingis' foot that I forced him to hang it up, for example. That'd be awesome. It would never happen. It couldn't happen. It wouldn't happen. It can't happen because it wouldn't work.
We'd have to get rid of Brown.
Yeah. We were talking about having to get rid of Jaylen Brown to try to find some way to swing for Cooper Flagg, but that didn't happen either.
Oh, no. Cooper Flagg. Shout out to him. I hope he ends up somewhere respectable.
Yes. I hope he does not end up getting pigeonholed to a crap franchise that's going to be 10, 12 years into his career before they're even contending.
Charlotte!
Utah!
Don't want him in Charlotte. And I don't ever want to see Cooper Flagg put on a Philadelphia
76ers uniform. Yeah.
I don't want that.
Never in Philly. And Michael Jordan is not an executive that's worth keeping around. And
he's the worst. As great as he is as a player, he's the worst executive in pro sports almost history. He's terrible.
Who would you say is the worst? I mean, Michael Jordan's got to be up there.
Michael Jordan.
I mean, if he's not the worst, who else would you have on the list? That's what I'm saying. If you weren't the worst,
Nico.
Yeah. Speaking of which, double down on your trade there, buddy.
Oh my God! Like, I mean, just because of my fandom and how much I despise right now, you'd want to say Jerry Jones, but he's won 3 championships. He's put good contending teams out there, so it's not.
He got rid of Jimmy Johnson after they just won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, but then they won another one.
Okay, I'll grant you. I'll give you that.
I'm granted Barry Switzer had this much to do with that. It was all about Jimmy's team because it was all Jimmy's team for sure. But no, he's put on contending teams. They go on runs, they make playoffs, they have winning seasons. So it's not Jerry. It's obviously the owners and the GMs who consistently have back-to-back, have losing seasons, losing. It's like I said, when people who don't watch football and don't watch sports clown on the Cowboys and they're like, oh, you must be used to them being so bad. It's like, no, I'm used to them not winning Super Bowls, but I'm not used to them being bad. They're normally a good contending team that either wins
like
the division.
My Patriots, usually a good contending team. Yes, we haven't been consistent. Obviously, since Brady left, we haven't been anything worth talking about, really. But even within the years in between the Super Bowls, we were always in the conversation. Always in the conversation.
I like to compare the Cowboys kind of to the Patriots pre-Brady with Bledsoe. Good teams, just not good enough.
Yeah, because I think for that, because that was the end of the Parcells era of New England. Speaking of Parcells, he and Robert Kraft are burying the hatchet, and Parcells is being inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame.
Thank God.
Yep.
Parcells does not get enough credit. Let's put it like
this. He does not.
Would not be who he is if it was not for Bill Parcells.
The reason why Bill Belichick is the coach that he is because of Parcells. He learned everything he knew from Parcells.
I mean,
okay, hold on, my Bluetooth disconnected really quick.
I can still hear you just fine.
One sec. I can't hear you that well. I'm just gonna turn it back on.
Okay, no worries. No, Parcells and Kraft had a very acrimonious split.
Oh, absolutely, they did.
And that's when Pete Carroll came in, and his years here were kind of crap. Not gonna lie, they were really kind of shitty. They were pretty bad. And that turnover when Belichick came in was the year before. I think Belichick came in the year 2000. I think that was the year before. That was the year they drafted Brady. I think didn't he draft Brady in his first year as a coach?
Yes.
But again, that turnover, because Parcells' defense was still there throughout Carroll's tenure.
Yes.
Aside from Chris Slade, who was honestly the Patriots version of Lawrence Taylor in the 90s.
Yeah.
Granted, no one's Lawrence Taylor. No one's Lawrence Taylor. You could talk about Micah Parsons for about a week, but then it's like, wait a second, it's Lawrence Taylor. No. But
1,000%. No, and it's like New England was lack of talent either, too. You got to think about it. They had Curtis Martin, Ben Coach, Terry Glenn.
That coach was the Gronk of the 90s. You couldn't stop that man.
And so it's not like they were
Terry Glenn, Vincent. Yeah, they had people, but they just didn't have enough.
The first football jersey I ever owned was a Dave Meggett jersey of the Patriots.
What?
That's
great.
Yeah, it's a Dave Meggett jersey.
Dave Meggett. Oh, shout out to Dave Meggett, wherever the hell you are, man.
Of all players, man. And then, of course, when you really break down what is going to happen as far as this NFL season, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because let's make it a kind of a short show, because obviously it's just two of us. Ian's not here.
Sure. Yeah.
Before we get into the question here, who is your dark horse? A team, and I mean a true dark horse.
True dark horse. NFL or NBA playoffs?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
NFL.
Are we talking either conference or both conferences, or just one conference, or in general?
Either conference, any team, a true dark horse, like not being a team that you see coming out of nowhere.
Okay. New England's too far for me to really say them. They're too far away from anything to really say that. I mean, they're coming, but they're not. I wouldn't say they're a dark horse yet.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say they're a dark horse yet.
If I had
depending what happens in the draft, I'll reserve that for the Patriots' dark horse status for that, depending on the draft.
Yeah. I say now I probably have them sitting like 8 and 9, probably in a best season for them, or
Right now in a vacuum, they're 8 or 9 seed contending for a wild card, but they're not there yet.
Yes, agreed. But much improved.
Much improved. Dark horse. I'd say Seattle, but Seattle is also trying to just gave away everything.
They picked up Sam Darnold and Cooper Kupp.
But they don't have anything else, really.
Why hasn't
defensively? I don't know. That's a really good question. Is there something with this medical that's not holding up to snuff? Because
possible, or is he just trying to avoid like the OTAs? You know what I mean?
But even if you're avoiding OTAs, you're only hampering your own value.
Yeah, you're just hurting your stock.
I mean, not to sound biased, but New England could pick him up and he'd be a solid number 2 or 3.
He's not going to go unsigned. He's still a very polished receiver.
No, he is. He must be looking for something like either he's trying to. Did he get released by the Seahawks or did he have to be traded?
Yeah, released. He's a free agent right now.
Okay.
So while you're thinking, I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, go for it.
I think it's Chicago.
Okay.
And the reason I think Caleb Williams is truly going to come into his own this year, and I think he's going to show why he was the number 1 pick, and I think he's going to have the best season out of that rookie class from a year ago. No offense to Drake May, no offense to Jaden Daniels, no offense to Bo Nix. But I think we all agree, in a vacuum, Caleb has the most talent out of any of them. And I think
agree. Absolutely agree. And there's not. You also have to consider the fact that Ben Johnson's now his coach.
Yes, which is that's such a big upgrade. And Caleb Williams, if you look at the numbers, had a very strong second half of the season. Very strong.
He did, and he much like you had been saying about May, he has to have a strong sophomore season. Otherwise, the talks are going to come up of bust.
Yeah,
which it's horrible to think of as a bust, but it's true.
I mean, especially like look at the difference compared to now, compared to back then, of how long it took quarterbacks to really flourish and really come. Look how long it took for Drew Brees or Alex Smith, people who struggled legitimately 3 or 4 years, and their teams stuck with them in a sense. Obviously, Drew Brees went on to the Saints, Alex Smith went on to the Chiefs after the Niners, but they showed that they are, in fact, not bust. And Drew Brees showed he's one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time.
Right. This is going to sound. I want to say Pittsburgh, assuming Rodgers actually signs and plays.
That's fair. That's tremendously fair. I mean, with what they have,
but they picked up Metcalf. TJ Watt's still playing. Fireman's still playing. They haven't lost anything. Tomlin's still there. I mean, Tomlin is Tomlin, obviously.
I'm hot and cold on Tomlin. I think Mike Tomlin is one of the coaches that will do the most with the least, but the least with the most, if that makes sense.
Sounds a lot like Belichick in a sense.
Yeah, I don't.
The difference is Belichick wouldn't spend to get anything. He would just take your has-beens and turn them into all-stars. And
of course, yeah. This is no shade on Tomlin. I don't put him anywhere near.
No, I'm again, we're pretenders to the thrones, as it were.
Yes.
But I would say, because a lot's going to ride on what Pittsburgh does at the quarterback position. A lot's going to ride on it. For the AFC, I'd say Pittsburgh. NFC,
Chicago. You know it is
Chicago. It's got to be Chicago, but I also don't want to necessarily call them a dark horse in the sense because they're already loaded with talent.
That's fair, but if we're basing it off records from last year,
for the performance in the record column, then I'd say Chicago and Pittsburgh in terms of the two.
That's fair. Pittsburgh's a really good answer too. And real quick, just the vice versa of that. Who do you think's going to have the biggest drop off this year? My answer.
Drop off.
My answer is quickly Minnesota.
Minnesota's going to have a drop off. I also think that Baltimore might have a drop off too. Just a feel.
Baltimore, wow.
Just a feel. Because again, they haven't been able to get over the hump.
No, they haven't. And I'm not as big on that DeAndre Hopkins signing as everybody else. He's not the same receiver.
No. I mean, he had 2 catches in garbage time in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs, if that.
Yeah. He had a few good moments with Kansas City. Don't get me wrong, but if this was DeAndre Hopkins from the Houston days, I'd be like, holy shit!
Right. That's like, here comes Baltimore.
Yeah, but he's not that DeAndre Hopkins anymore.
No, he's not, and I'd want to say Buffalo, but Buffalo still has Josh Allen, but they do need a receiver.
They do.
Keon Coleman is nothing to sneeze at. I'm not taking anything from him, but they don't have the barn burner that they had with Diggs.
No.
But
Coleman, right? He's one of those guys that's a legitimate NFL receiver. He's good, not great.
Serviceable, but not great.
Serviceable. That's the best way to put it. I mean, when you look at somebody like, especially when they tried, right? They tried to go and get Amari Cooper, and obviously they got Cooper, but he wasn't the same Amari Cooper that he was in Oakland or Dallas. He was
Cleveland.
Even in Cleveland, he wasn't the same that he was in Dallas or Oakland. But
true. But I think he was better in Cleveland than he was in Buffalo.
Agreed. 100% agreed there. No question. He was definitely better in Cleveland than he was in Buffalo. He's not the same anymore. No. I think Buffalo's going to go after a receiver in the draft, which is why I don't think they're going to slide.
As long as they don't trade another pick to the Chiefs. Those trades to the Chiefs ended up being Patrick Mahomes and Xavier Worthy.
That's just ridiculous. I've got a weird feeling that the Chiefs are going to come back with a vengeance, like pissed off Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, you kind of have to be prepared for it because let's just be honest, they got punked. Heavily
punked.
Quick thoughts on the tush push man getting tabled.
Look. It's one of those plays I'm not a fan of. It takes away out of the excitement of the game. It takes away from legitimate scheming. It takes away from legitimate play calling. But most importantly, Justin, fuck Philly. Okay?
Exactly.
Above everything else I just said, fuck the Eagles.
But also, fuck the Bills because they did just as much, almost as much as Philly did.
Yeah, they are. They're not as successful at it, but
not as successful because Philly's basically patented the damn thing.
Yeah, dude. God, what is his bitch ass name? Oh my God,
Hurts?
No, not Hurts. Oh my God,
Jason Kelce?
No, the fucking Eagles coach.
Sirianni.
Nick Sirianni. Thank you. Nick Sirianni.
That other worm.
Bitch. He incorporated that when he was the offensive coordinator in fucking Indianapolis. Is when that first happened. And
Is that when that came around?
Mm-hmm. He was the offensive coordinator in Indy. And he was like, he put a big quarterback in there and just push him.
Now, at the same time, let's just be honest, this actually was inaugurated in USC with Mike Leonard and Reggie Bush. But
no, back in 05 for sure.
That's when it was inaugurated, but it wasn't like it didn't become a thing until. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Now, I think that the tush push. With that being said, I don't think it should get banned.
I don't think it should get banned either, but I think you have to declare it much like an eligible receiver.
Oh, I like that. I like that rule. I fully agree. And it's almost like there's got to be a way where the defense can almost stack the box to defend it too.
That's what I'm getting at for you have to declare it as an eligible receiver, an eligible lineman sort of thing. Because I mean, again, let's just be honest, it takes away from the game. It absolutely takes away from the game.
If this was baseball, we'd be calling it Bush League.
It would be. I mean, again, almost again, it's not. It's like the torpedo bats, which they're not illegal, but it feels like this is kind of crap. But
yes, no, agreed. Totally agreed.
It's not the same level, really, because it's not the same because the torpedo bats, where they actually came out last year, they weren't really heavily featured. The tush push has been around for years and nothing. So yeah, we know what it is.
And it's almost like Kareem's skyhook. It feels like an unstoppable play when Philly runs it.
Right. But
you'd need like a lot of McDonald's to stop that.
This is going to sound crazy, and this is going to sound like, again, almost like Bush League in a sense. But if you are to have to declare you're doing the tush push play, you have to allow the defense to have 12 men on the field.
Let's put it like this.
It's got to be a give and take of some sort. It's got to be some kind of give and take.
Agreed. And if it ever did come to that, then I would want them to ban it. Because then it's taken away from the integrity of the game, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think it should. I don't think
it should be banned. I want it to be banned, but it won't, and it probably shouldn't. And I want it gone because it feels like you're. I mean, if you're going to quarterback sneak it. Don't. I don't know. I don't know how to put it into words.
Do what Brady did. One quick
dolphin jump it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or hard count. If you can't hard count and draw them off sides, then you can't do it.
And it also should be like almost one of the things where forward progress should, I don't want to say get stopped earlier on a tush push, but there's been multiple times where it felt like Hurts wasn't going anywhere, and then he got that extra shove.
And then they gave him 3 extra yards.
Yeah, so let's put it like this. I think he should only be able to be getting pushed while he's having forward progress. I think once that forward progress initially gets stopped, I don't think they should be allowed
that's where you have to blow the play dead. Once forward progress is stopped, not initially stopped, not when it stalls, when he hits resistance and he's stopped, not when he rolls over and continues on for another 3 yards.
Right.
Because he's getting pushed. Agreed. But when your initial forward progress is stopped, not just consistent forward progress, but initial forward progress is stopped on that play, you have to blow the play dead.
That's how it should be. And I'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay with it too. I would. I think that, again, there's a lot of folks in Philly who'll be really pissed off at you, and I don't give a shit.
No. Don't fucking care. Don't fucking care. Now, let's get on to the question, Justin. And I wish we had our full slate of people here, because I've got
we're 2 folks short. Come on.
And this is a damn good question. I wish they were here, but I can't save it. I've got to ask.
Let's do it.
In your opinion, what do you think are the 2 sports that have the biggest gap between professionals and amateurs?
Ooh. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I got my 2. And if you want to go first, you can, but I got my 2 right now. Because I thought
the biggest gap between professional and amateur.
Yeah. Do you want to hear my 2?
NBA is a slam dunk.
I don't have NBA.
Okay.
You want to hear? Oh, let me tell you my 2.
Okay.
My two are golf and combat sports.
Okay. I was thinking 4 major sports. So that's okay. That's fair.
Yeah. Golf and combat sports like UFC or boxing.
Okay.
I think that's the biggest gap between professionals and amateurs.
Okay, I can understand that. Golf is kind of, I mean, I completely understand the argument for golf and for combat sports. Golf is a little bit different for me, only because the mindset of golf has a lot to do. Again, when you're watching, it's different.
When you watch those people at the amateurs, when you're watching those people at the Masters shoot 8 or 9 under on that course, and some of the putts and how consistent their drive is,
mm-hmm.
and then you watch like amateurs play, and it's like there is a scathing difference.
It's staggering how the difference is for sure. But I was going to make the kind of the jokes like, well, if you get someone who could drive the ball like Happy Gilmore, then it doesn't matter as long as they can putt.
That's fair, but nobody on earth can drive the ball like Happy Gilmore.
Someone's closer.
Fucking love that movie so much.
Nah, for me, I mean, again, my mindset's on the 4 major sports, that's where my mind is. But I would say the NBA, because the G League is like 10, like that's like a pickup game at the court.
Oh, for G League, I don't consider amateurs though. Those guys are signed to a professional contract.
Are they? Okay, I amateur. Okay. Baseball, because the level for example, you're not going to find a major league level pitch playing at single A ball. You're just not.
No way.
You can develop it, but they're not there. They're years away.
Agreed fully.
I would say again, I want to preface that answer as long as you're talking about any level lower than AA ball. AA ball or lower, because AA ball players, for example, the Red Sox, and they have the Sea Dogs here in Portland. AA ball players could play in the major leagues as a September call-up. They have that capability. But anything lower than that, you're a spring training invitee, and then hopefully you make a team. That's how that works.
Let me ask you this, actually. I heard something about baseball, and I kind of want to see how accurate this is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the talent differential from a pure vacuum standpoint from AA to the majors isn't as wide as you think it is? It's just the consistency of play.
I think that's a fair statement. Now you're not going to get consistency of play is definitely a difference, because AA ball comparatively, a major league player is going to be running circles around them in general.
No. Yes, no. But they said like the overall vacuum talent gap between them isn't as wide.
It's not as wide. Like that's why I said if you go below AA ball, then you're going to have a much more wider gap of talent level.
Yeah.
And then maybe hockey. Maybe hockey, because yes, minor league hockey teams, they are professionals, but you're only really ever going to see like 2 or 3 call-ups a year, unless for injury reasons for the most part, not just because you're that good usually.
That makes total sense. No, those are 2 solid answers. Like I said, I was thinking of that question all week, and golf and combat sports were the first things on my mind, because I was
combat sports. I would not have thought about, but it makes sense because you're not going to. I mean, for example, I'm not going to get into a jiu-jitsu fight or a judo fight with Ronda Rousey and have a chance, even as a guy. Not a chance in hell.
No. And imagine fighting John Jones in an octagon.
Forget it. I'm dead.
Over.
Game over, man. I'm dead. Like the call on the corner on standby. I'm dead.
Yeah, 100% agree. And then, like I said, here's what made me think of golf too, really quick before we sign off here.
Sure.
Tony Romo is a phenomenal golfer, right? Phenomenal golfer. And if you talk to people, celebrities, all that, they say, "Oh, Tony Romo's the best amateur player that I've seen. Like, he's a tremendous golfer." He's tried to make the cut at the Masters. He can't do it. And it's one of those things where it's not.
Is it the course that's beating him, or is it himself that's beating him?
I think he's not. That's tough. That's a good question. It may be him. Like, it may be a mental thing, but because
the courses that they play at are. I mean, I'd be shooting 120 every single time, if not worse.
and they're shooting 10 to 15 under sometimes.
Exactly. And again, that's not to say that they're not that they shouldn't or anything. That there's a chasm of talent from top to bottom in the pros. But my question for the amateur aspect of things is the reason why you can't make the cut because the course beats you or because you got beat by yourself? Is it a self-confidence thing?
Hey, that's a
because the ambiance of Augusta National is a thing. You're not gonna walk onto Augusta National or St. Andrews in Scotland and say, I'm gonna make the cut and feel confident about doing it. You're not. It's the course.
Say it's the early 2000s, right? And you're an amateur golfer, chance of making the cut. Like, oh, you're paired up with Tiger Woods today. Your confidence is jump instantly.
Yeah. It's like I'm never gonna be seen on TV because I'm paired with Tiger Woods. He will be seen the entire time, but my pairing is never gonna be seen. Thank God, because I'm gonna be taking 3 strokes to get into the fairway.
Yes, because he's gonna embarrass me.
Exactly.
That's all the time we got tonight. Mixed reactions. Justin, I don't think we've ever done a show with just us two, but it was a great show tonight, man.
I know.
And hopefully Ian and Sean can return soon.
Definitely.
We definitely have to continue on with this, boys. And, like we said earlier, we're going to start posting clips, YouTube shorts, and anybody who ever wants to get on this show, hit us up. Let us know what you want to talk about, and you are free to come on Mixed Reactions at any time.
No sports topic is unaccepted. We'll talk about it. Even if we don't know the subject, we'll learn the subject. Teach us.
Yes, absolutely. We are welcome students when it comes to sports we don't know. Hence
Absolutely.
why I've been on for so many times talking about baseball. I like baseball. It's not one of my top 4 favorite sports, so I just don't have the knowledge of it. And
yeah,
it was always good to have him on for that. And look what happened. He's now a full-time co-host, and you never know. It could happen to you guys too.
Don't forget to bring that tail. It's raining here.
And what do I always say, Justin?
Fuck Philly.
Fuck Philly. We out.
Have a good night, everybody.